Hello, welcome. It's George from the future. I just wanted to say it's been a week now since Bout of the Cuckoo went up, and it's my most viewed video, which is why this video is coming out. Bear with me in this video. I think I filmed this at like midnight-ish. I live with my parents. They were asleep. I needed to be quiet, which is why I'm not like all hyperactive and shit like I usually am. But basically, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to everybody who commented. Thank you to everybody who shared the video. Thank you for just everybody who watched the video, because it's just nice to see something that I put a lot of effort into do pretty well, you know? I have started the Animatic for the next animation. I will be honest, don't know if it's going to be up by the 1st of next month, but I will try and get it out by then. So, thank you, everybody. Let's just get on with the video. Now, on the I'm Back video, the audio was a little weak. Some of you might have noticed, so I've turned it up in the actual recording bit. So now it should be a little bit better. Sorry about the mess that's everywhere. This is my phone recording my sketchbook that's down here, because today we're going through my process of making Bout of the Cuckoo, which as of filming this has been up for about 11 hours and is my best performing video of all time. So thank you all very much for watching it and enjoying it and giving me feedback on it. It's super nice to just see something that I put a lot of work into do quite well by my standards. So yeah, thanks all, especially everybody who like just shared out the tweets and the Facebook stuff that I put out, and my friends and family put out and everything. So pretty damn good. It's nice to see like the more you put in, the more you get out, sort of thing. It feels good, you know? Anyway, so today we are talking about basically my process, how it all began, and how it all ended. If you haven't seen Bout of the Cuckoo, you should probably watch it before watching this. Dun dun dun. Right, let's turn on my phone, shall we? Right, so you guys are currently looking at just a random page of my sketchbook, but I wanted to pay close attention to this little post-it note here, because it quite literally says Link shooting arrows at a bird and missing, the bird shoots back. That was the original idea, that was the concept, that was the idea that I wrote into the sketchbook, and on the next page I started to thumbnail it out. Basically, I have a very avid imagination, vivid imagination, so I can picture things in my head very clearly. And when they start coming, they need to go down. You know, they need to go down. So this is the basically thumbnail storyboard process of the animation. This is it, literally shot for shot in some cases. Obviously, all of this changed as time went on, but shot for shot, basically, this is what happens in the short film. I knew what I wanted to do, I knew how long I wanted it to be, and I knew that I wanted to do it. I've always had this really bad habit of starting projects and just giving up. So actually finishing this one and seeing it do pretty well is fantastic. So this is where it started. It then, from here on, pretty much, I did a few just designs. Here's the cuckoo, the bird, who sort of stayed very similar throughout. But you can see these designs of Link that I had just were not the Link that I wanted to do, and I ended up going with something a little bit more like this. And never mind his like weird Joker smile. It's just there, but something a bit more like this. I've drawn Link so many times in my past that, you know, drawing him was pretty easy, and drawing him repeatedly was pretty easy as well. So yeah, this is basically where the sketchbook stuff ends. There's my cool like Star Wars stickery bit, but that's basically where the actual sketchbook stuff ends, and we can move straight into the other thing, the Animatic. That's what we're doing. This here is basically the Animatic. This is what I made out of the storyboards. I made this in Adobe Animate, which is what I used to do this entire project except posts. So if I just basically show you, there's no audio, but you can see how I basically rough out the entire animation on this. I believe, yeah, even here, the Animatic is where I add in a lot of shots that I think should be there. Even after I finish the animation, I think there are a few shots I should have added in just for clarity. But yeah, so here, this shot of him walking was not in the original storyboard. It just started off with him looking up at this bird. Even now, I think there should have been an establishing shot of the forest that basically just shows you that he's in a forest. Then obviously he looks up at the bird and he pulls out the bow. Then I added the da 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 because that's Zelda pun, ha ha ha, funny. However, I can't help but feel like there should have been, it should have cut on him pulling the bow out of his back rather than it cutting on him being like this and then suddenly being da 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 da, you know. But yeah, anyway, he shoots the bird, misses a few times. Then so this picture, it's everywhere in this project. It's part of the thumbnail. It's part of the sort of promotional stuff that I put on Instagram and shit. I just think it's really funny. I think it looks like Nick Cage as Link. It makes me giggle. So it's there. I now have headphones on. The headphones are for no reason, so I'm gonna take them off. Anyway, continuity. Anyway, so this Link picture is just very funny, and it stays in. It's like pretty much exactly the same. Yeah, I'm just gonna play it through. So yeah, then this shot here in the actual animation, I'll talk about why I don't like it. Don't like this shot at all. I could have done a lot better if I'd have given myself, I don't want to say more time, because by the time I finished this it was 3 weeks until it went up and I had plenty of time to go through and redo this. I just couldn't be bothered, so I wish I'd have given myself a little bit more, I wish I had more morale to keep on going through and making this shot a bit nicer. You can sort of get the idea that it sort of like pulls around. I prefer the shot that I got in the end with him sort of like in slow motion. I'm adding in sound effects now. And then he hits the bird. Originally, did not stick in the bird. It hits him and flings off, but you couldn't really get that sort of feeling. And then the bird sort of does this. This turned into a bit more of a zoom than like a quick like boom. Also, he's facing the wrong direction, so it looks like he's sort of gone sort of thing. It's like, you know. Anyway, yeah, so bird goes crazy. Link's like, bird's like, rah! I again prefer the shot that I got in the end. And then all the birds come up and they all fire. And then Link getting roasted at the end obviously was always a thing. Not going to miss a chance to roast a good Link. But yeah, from this, basically all of this, I probably made in 3 hours in Animate. Right at the beginning of this was, I probably storyboarded it and did the animatic in 2 days. I rushed through the production of this, and originally I was going to do all of the voices for Link and the bird, and then I got it into post-production and it just sounded shit, so I ended up taking a lot of sound effects from YouTube. So some of the sound effects I did myself. Some of the bowstrings and everything were literally my like leather that was like being stretched across across itself to create that sort of tension noise. I like that sort of stuff. But yeah, now we'll go on to a couple of the animation files that I really like. So now we're in Adobe Animate. This is the program that I used for the bulk of everything. Of course, there's no audio for like any of this yet. I did all of that in Premiere Pro, but this basically did the bulk of, took the bulk of the workload. I separated each shot of the animation into a separate scene so that it's not just one continuous timeline that's going on forever and ever, because that can get so confusing. But I basically, working from scene 1, which is just Link walking through the woods, you can see here that the timeline down here looks very simple. Like, it looks deceivingly simple. That's because I used a magical thing called symbols, which basically allow you to have a separate timeline for each different entity. So Link is actually 2 separate entities, his head and his body. His body has 3 other layers of animation going on, so just like this, and then his head again has another bunch of animation going on where he looks up and to the left, I suppose his left, our right. And that basically means that now in the original timeline, I can bob Link's head from side to side without having to worry about that movement of him looking up, because it just happens. I don't have to animate him in doing this. I can do that afterwards when I can see the body and I can see how it's going to work. I could have put the entirety of Link into another symbol. That's one thing I'll get into a bit later. You can place symbols inside of other symbols to then have inception layers, basically. So you could animate the eyes on Link's head separately and have them blinking at separate times, or you can actually go into the head and do, if you have audio, you could do lip sync inside the symbol, and it wouldn't be as big of a problem, which is always nice. Or even the lips could be their own separate symbol so that you can move them about freely on the timeline, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's basically how I went through and did Link's animation. His walk cycle is the same, like 3 frames, just duplicated and reversed. So he takes 1 step and then reverses that step to then be down here, and then re-reverses that step, and then reverses it again, and then freezes and looks up. So there's a little animation sheet for you, basically. The background, so the trees and the forest in the background, that was all done in Photoshop. They are basically just translucent PNGs. These 2 trees that you see moving parallaxed in the background are the same tree duplicated. One of them is just slightly lighter, and that just gives the idea of distance, and the parallaxing effect where one tree is moving slightly faster because it's closer to the camera really just adds the idea of 3D space. There we go. Yeah, so that's basically scene 1. Let's go straight on to scene 9. Okay, cool. So scene 9 is the crazy chicken going like blah, you know. So originally I just had the idea of this chicken, just I don't even remember what the idea of the noise was supposed to be, but then I animated this and I sort of thought to myself, that is very like ah, sort of a scream. So obviously decided to go with the entire like rubber chicken meme where they sort of bah! Scream. I really like this shot, I'm not gonna lie. Again, doing it all on layers or in symbols. I just really love the way it's animated, the sort of like movement of the body that goes with the neck and the head that whips forward and like bounces. I really like it. I think it looks really good. Yeah, and then obviously the tongue as a secondary movement sort of afterwards. The tongue is its own separate layer inside the head layer, or inside the head symbol, sorry. And it's just duplicated, sort of like doing this, you know, so that it emulates that force that it's supposed to have. This drawing I'm super pleased of, purely because it looks like it's something straight out of Pokemon. And I'm really happy about that. But yeah, I can't really say a lot else about this except that the getting the neck right was a real pain in the ass. I had to go in and basically colour the neck completely separately, because in this bit it appears behind the body, which means that it has to be on the layer beneath the body so that it does fall back, and then in front of the head No. Why was this so difficult to animate? It was difficult to animate though, just because it sort of changes orientation and where that neck is. So say the body's here. It's like Photoshop. If any of you have any clue on how to use Photoshop, it is basically in layers. You can go, say you've got line art and you want to color it. You're not going to go on the layer above because that's going to be covering up your line art. You're going to want to go on the layer beneath so that the line art is on top of the color. That's basically what I had to do with this neck. If the neck was color, but eventually the color had to be above the line art. It's a weird. It was difficult to animate. Okay. Then what? I haven't got my glasses on. Scene A. Scene A is the one that I don't like, don't like as much. So we'll go on to that later. Here we go. So this is the scene that I didn't storyboard. I'm on the wrong bit. That I didn't storyboard. That's because it's really memey. And it was a joke that I added in afterwards, and I don't understand how I didn't see it originally. But that just happens in the creative process. A lot of the time, you just go ahead and start working, and eventually, something brilliant comes to you. So the bow, everything in this is a single image. Background's done in Photoshop. Link is drawn in Animate, and the bow and arrow is its separate symbol. And it's glorious. I really love the movement of the bow and arrow, like spinning. Yeah, it's just a really effective little like animation looped, and really works in the style of Legend of Zelda, because obviously it's dubbed from the Zelda video games. It comes from Zelda. I love it. I love this. Scene 4, I think, is the best shot animation-wise in this film, and I'll go over why in a second. Cinematography wise, it could be better. It's on the third, but it's very two-dimensional. It looks like a side scroller, and Link sort of like has the bow and he puts his hand up, he's like yep, and then pulls it down and boom, shoots it out. I like this animation because not only does it have this sort of like ease in, the arm arcs really nicely as well. Like it just looks like it's coming up and around, and the leg comes out as well as like a secondary movement to sort of steady himself, and then he pulls it back and shoots it. One thing that I should have added is just a little bit of reflex from the bow. So the bow is being pulled taut, which means everything up here is bending down, and I do add that. So it does like add, and it bounces, but then the arm stays exactly where it is. He goes thump, and the arm stays exactly where it is, where it should have probably gone like thump, and then the arm comes down a little bit where that pressure is being eased. Only problem that I have with this animation wise, I really like it because of how effective the secondary animation of the cap is. The actual Link's cap is done completely separately to the overall image. I drew Link without his hat and everything, and then his hat is just, with each movement, I thought this will affect the hat in this way, and it worked. And then he moves down, and the hat sort of like floats up and then falls back down and like swings a little bit behind him. If you can see that there, it like right here, it just swings a little bit. I really love it. I really love it. That's how just effective a little bit of secondary animation can be to bring something to life. Love it. Love it. Now we're going on to the scene that I don't love. This is scene 8. This is the experimental scene. If you were talking to me whilst I was making Bow to the Cuckoo, then you'll know that I was not pleased with this scene. It sort of takes a different style. It goes into like this slow motion sort of thing, and then flips around, and there's a lot of motion blur that I added in. The animation doesn't really make sense. There's a lot of animation mistakes. Like, I'm gonna ruin this for some people. The color of the eyes is over the arrow. I'm dumb. It's really bad. In pre-production, I realised that the reason I don't like it very much is because there's no lead into this style. It's just scruffy, and because of that, it looks unfinished. If I'd have drawn this frame and the last frame as in my style, in the style of the animation, then it would have worked, because it would have pulled it out of the animation and then put it back in. Whereas this doesn't do that. It looks so sketchy and unfinished. And it really annoys me, because this was actually the last shot I worked on. So I was tired. I wanted to get this out by a certain time, even though I had 3 weeks to finish it. I felt like I was rushed with it because of this process that I had in my head of if I finish this 3 weeks before it's supposed to go out, then I have 3 weeks to put out the next one. I've barely started storyboarding the next one, because this, I was like, I finished this and then uni work took off, and now it's sort of battling with it, and I'm trying to get the next one done so that I can get that out for April, and hopefully I'm still on track to do that, or sometime before April or after April, in April maybe. Anyway, yeah, just don't like this shot. I have to say, I like it more now that the background is in, and it sort of fades out, flips around, and the background moves with it and makes it look like it's sort of settling. I prefer that. There's also a little bit of secondary animation with the cap, but there's like no colour in the cap there in that bit, and then there is, and it sort of just looks unfinished. I'll be honest, it's unfinished. This shot is unfinished. You can't notice it when you're watching it. When you're watching it, it's just a fun little animation. It's like, oh wow, look at that slow motion bit. But I made this. I know where I cut corners, and I don't feel good about it. Anyway, I think that's all of the scenes I wanted to talk about. You've sort of gotten a little insight into how this was made and my process. Premiere Pro. I used Premiere Pro to edit this, each scene together. I exported each scene as a movie so that they were all separate MP4 files. Actually, I'll get I think it's this one. So they were all separate MP4 files here. And I took these MP4 files, dropped them into Premiere Pro, edited them up properly in the way that I wanted them to work together and collide. I can't bother to open up Premiere Pro. It's going to take ages, and it's 20 to 12 at night, and I really want to sleep. But yeah, it's from there I added in sound effects and basically just exported it. And I remember finishing the animation at like close to midnight on a couple Tuesdays back. It must have been around Valentine's Day, and I was sat here thinking, I finished it, it's done. And I sat back in my chair and was like, it's too late in the evening to tell anybody. Everybody's asleep. And I was sort of wandering around the house being like, I'm so chuffed with myself. I'm really pleased with myself. This is actually, like, it looks decent. It's a finished cartoon. I've made a cartoon. And then in the morning, I sort of just walked downstairs, and my mum was like, did you finish the animation? I was like, yeah. Novelty's worn off now. I'm still super pleased with it. For my first animated short, and I stress that it's my first because I know that I can do better than this in the future, and it's so nice having this be the most well-performing video on my channel. I'm actually going to make myself bigger. It's fantastic knowing that this is the best performing video that I've ever had on my channel, on any of my YouTube channels, because I've spent a lot of my life uploading stupid rubbish to YouTube. This is the first thing that I was sort of blown away at the reception of, and compared to my other stuff, this is massive. This is huge. And then not only is it a really just good thing to have on the channel, it's also a fantastic stepping stone to sort of elevate myself on. Because I now know what I can do and what I can't do, and what I need to work at and what I don't need to work at, or that I need to work at slightly less. You know? So yeah, I'm super pleased with the outcome of this, and I'm glad that everybody else has liked it too. Obviously, feedback is always welcome. I am constantly learning, and that's the point of animation, is that you are just constantly learning new little things. If you want to see just me progress, or progress with me, if you're learning a new skill, if you're becoming an animator or an illustrator or doing anything creative, I want to hear about it. If you are, like I say, just if you're learning anything, drop me a comment, just be like, hey, I'm actually learning, for example, music production at the moment, and that's super interesting. That's super interesting to me, and I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear about it. Right, that'll do. Like and subscribe and stuff, especially if you want to see more, because that just means that, you know, I know that you want to see more. Ta-ra for now, lads. Ta-ra for now.